Up and it's just, you know,
And I don't know why.
yeah.
No, I enjoy
The Newport, June 13th, 2023 meeting of the Newport Planning Board. It is 6:18. And I'd like to get the roll call starting with Jeff. Jeff North.
Tobin Menard.
Ray Kibbe. Ken Morrow, acting chair. Okay. Agenda review. Is there any comments for the agenda? Everybody?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that there is a number of Mylar signings that need to happen tonight under administration.
Okay.
Just, I normally list them, and I do have what they are, but they're all here, and they're besides the case tonight, all the other Mylars have been pre-approved by the boards, just waiting for signatures.
Okay, so we can do that at the end. Okay. We have no continued business, correct?
None.
Okay. And under new business, we have case 2023-LLA-01, Jeff North and Scott Stemp owners, Clay Flat agent. Request a final review for lot line adjustment. Properties as identified map 220 lot 18 and 18-001 located on Greenwood Road in the rural zoning district.
I'll make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And one abstention. So we have 3 ayes and 1 abstention. Maura.
Thank you.
So we're now open. So now we'll open case 2023-LLA-01. Clayton, you want to present it?
Yeah, I'm Clayton Platt, I'm the surveyor for Jeff and Scott. Scott was in the house up on Greenwood Road, one of the 2 houses on that side of the road. Pretty much the lot consists mostly of the lowlands, right around the house, and there's a field to the north and some woodland to the west. Basically, he wanted to buy 2.9 acres total from Mr. North, and it would make his lot 5.13 acres. Currently, 2.23 acres. I think it makes this lot a little bigger, and the north property is still conforming. It's frontage on Old Kellyville Road and frontage on the other side of Greenwood Road. This area is kind of disconnected from the bulk of the property from the south. That's basically just a kind of simple boundary line adjustment and annexation.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Nope. Any questions from the public? Seeing none?
I'll make a motion that we accept 2023-LLA-01.
I'll second it.
And a second from Tobin. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Jeff's abstaining. So we're approved.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, you guys. That's it.
That's really pretty embarrassing.
If you could sign, maybe accepted, and those conditions. You got, second one.
Enjoy your new garden. I will. I got all the facts I know.
The Mylar, just want to call you, John.
That was a
If you feel right,
vegetable garden. You want to bring it over? Like we
no, I didn't.
Okay. Correct.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so you, from rid of a mouse break.
I found the Mylars, including this one, to sign at the end. Thank you.
No, he has the case. Yeah, they're cute. I got your babies now.
Okay, moving along. Christina under admin.
Did you want to do the May minutes? Did you want to look at the May minutes? It's prior to me. In the agenda,
Yep.
Do you want to do that first, or I can do the Mylars?
Okay.
Whatever you wish,
We'll look at the minutes first.
unless you want to defer the minutes.
No, I think we can get through them. Any comments on the minutes from anybody? Don't have to. If they're in order, you could still vote on that. We've been through that before. Minutes. Maybe 63. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll motion that we accept.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll make a second on that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, Jeff will abstain. So those are accepted. Okay, you want to do your Mylars now?
Yeah, I'll bring up tonight's case
Okay.
first, just because you guys have it in clear memory, and then I'll remind you of the other ones to make sure you know what you're signing. I do have Sharpies on the table. I don't know if Jeff should sign. I don't think so.
no,
So
no,
that's, yes.
I already did that once before. The second time around, wasn't it?
But yeah, if you want to hear from the names, you're going to discuss what voting form before it's fine. Okay.
Paper for Jeff North, just so you know I'm not scamming you with another one. Subdivision of mine. Joking, that's a joke. I don't understand. Here's another one for North. We usually do two. For mine and assessing. This is signed. Thank you. The next Mylar is Mead. This is
Yep.
the one that goes the farthest back. I have the approval by the DES for the sub, which is what we were waiting for, because, okay, so it's blurry, so hold on. So this is the Mylar, and then the two papers underneath.
And she's got mine for us.
Approval for septic?
Remember,
was-
they needed, this was your, I don't think should you sign this one? You don't care about that. Just remember that they had to approve, and I didn't really quite
No,
understand
they
it.
had to approve that they could get a septic system on the other lot.
Okay, well, thank you. I forgot exactly.
Was that done?
Yes. Yes, the approval for the subdivision
For the
is,
subdivision.
but that's given based on a septic being able to move. That's the rationale for the approval for the subdivision.
Yeah, they wouldn't approve it without that.
No. Without the septic. And I was holding this, and Patrick had called me and said, this is needed for us to move forward, and it is approved. Do you feel comfortable?
Yeah.
How many copies of this you need?
We usually make 2 signed paper. Oh, they gave a ton of them. You do not need to sign all of those. Thank you. Usually they'll get 4. Thank you. Okay, the next one is 169 Sunapee Street. If anyone remembers that, hopefully the Ruger Mill lot line adjustment that I called an annexation that I've just recently switched to an LL. And this has 3 separate Mylars. You saw them all the night. And 3 separate pieces of paper in with each Mylar. Does that make sense? They're kind of all on top of each other. You may want to, we saw these 3 that night. All 3 separate.
Do you want to keep these together?
Absolutely, yes, thank
That's
you.
me.
Thank you.
This is,
Oh, no,
I already
that one.
forgot the other
No,
name.
North.
Yeah,
Yeah,
north.
this
It's
one
not
goes
north,
first.
so it's somebody else now.
Well, it's North, right, it is.
Stan, what was his name?
Stop.
Stan's got to say.
Thank you. I can always go back and read who the names are, but thank you, they are now in order.
You can have that.
The Mylars are all showing the same lot line. I think they're being used based on government requirements for the final workforce housing
So
approval.
there's no title block on
We asked, remember that's what we, remember they all said preliminary, and I made sure that was taken off. Could you at least can sign wherever? Or do you want me to go back to them?
Is this right, Ken?
This,
They took off preliminary and added the block.
I remember this is your,
What's that?
that you wanted this plan a certain way. And
Do you want me to go back and get
it's
the
what you
minutes?
wanted, right?
Yeah, I think this is.
Yes.
You're comfortable with it?
Yeah, I mean, what I seen looks.
Let me go back and get pull the original case file. So you know you're looking at the same thing.
I really don't remember why. But I remember we had a problem with it.
And this is related to tanks.
It's something you're used to looking at, so.
Excuse me?
Yes.
It's in the minutes on page 3 under 2023 minutes 01,
Yeah.
and it has the, you want the minutes? Then it's on page 3.
I don't have my minutes anymore. She took them.
I had mine here a minute ago.
But it's a the ruler lot, is that what you're
Yeah.
looking at?
Nope, we're not looking at the
I didn't
ruler lot.
think you were, you're looking at a different case,
Yeah,
yeah. It was Jim Burrows who had a problem with the other one,
yes.
right?
Oh, actually, I think that one was me.
What's the name?
I think that's the one down at the mill, right? On the other side of the mill. They were trying to get along the river right there by the substation.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't remember exactly what and why.
I know we were, making sure they put sidewalks in. Remember that much.
I don't remember.
Here.
It's too many of them.
Page 4.
I'm reading.
Yeah, I think mine may have ended up somehow. It was here at one time, but
Here's the
page 4.
What were the conditions that we approved it with?
Signing block.
Go to the,
That's all it was?
that's receipt of application, so then, yep.
Update plan to include signature block and remove preliminaries from plan.
And so we are missing the signature, so here's the originals that they sent us, that just to make sure they at least match, but you're right, there's not the signing blocks. Is there a signing block on the third one by any chance? No, so just
So
on
just the
one.
front one is.
So, do you wanna, well,
I mean,
probably should hold,
technically, yeah.
yes.
Semantically, it's gonna matter.
They didn't. So this one has a sign block.
That one's fine.
That does not. So we can't sign them.
So this is.
You can actually sign one.
So this is, that's sheet 1 of 3. Okay. So technically signing that one.
They just
We
want,
sign all three. There's a reason we sign all three.
well, it's up to you. That one could be submitted because it was done correctly. They supposedly need the other two kind of different viewpoints to get through the purchase. But no, there's no signing blocks and no signature. But this one, since they followed it, you could do that one, although it would be up to you to hold them all till they're all correct. Whatever you
I'm gonna
just
hold them all and just have them fix the bylaw.
Okay.
And this is what we asked them to do.
Absolutely.
So fix it.
I fully agree.
That's the condition.
I thought I had looked at them, but I originally said I don't need 3, and they agreed, and then they came back and said, no, we do want 3, and then, so anyways, and I'll fix it. Wait a minute. I'll figure. Oh, yeah, that's John. Absolutely,
You can write out my
absolutely. I'll call the surveyor tomorrow to submit new ones, and then,
Yeah, just fix them.
Absolutely, and they might ask me to call people
Don't lose
independent.
that check on that first one. This,
This-
hanging off the edge.
This check actually goes to the north property.
Yeah.
Before,
It was just gonna fall off.
Oh, yeah, well, then, thank you. I'll make sure. I know Penny Hill paid.
All right, is that all? You got more?
Nope, that was it. That was all. We did Blue Box, Maid, North, and Sun Up. Oh,
We
wait,
didn't do
no,
Blue Box.
apologies. Jeez. I'm so sorry. Okay, does everyone remember Blue Box? If not, we can refresh.
Was there any conditions?
Let me go. Oh, yeah, I don't believe there was on this one for sure. Blue Box. What's the case 217?
She loses her voice and she gets all out of whack.
Was that in the May minute? Was that in the May minutes? That was very recent. That was the mobile home down there in the United Industrial thing.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, how did we accept it?
Here,
Passport and that.
Thank you.
you're welcome. You can keep some, actually.
Well,
That's really me.
I had some right here, but she grabbed them with everything else, which
That's
that's
okay.
fine. Usually I'm quick to get rid of them.
I don't have the. It talks about the accepting the case, but it doesn't. Oh, that's complete. Second amendment is site plan.
So didn't we move?
I don't see any conditions listed here, so. So down at, page 2 there,
Yeah.
third paragraph on the bottom, it just says the motion passed 4-0, but they accepted it, but I don't see any conditions.
Where's the motion?
So in that, Chairman, it says here, Chairman Burnham agreed to hearing the public. There was comment, Mr. Lucio made a motion to accept case 2023. It was seconded by you, and the motion passed 4-0. So I don't see
Yeah.
conditions listed. That's the
Yep,
only-
so all right, let's do it.
so it should be fine.
From now on, I will be copies of the acceptance and so you can know that nothing, so we don't, so you'll know
No,
what.
none. So we're good.
Okay.
I don't think I was here for that one.
You weren't here. It was the Ruger one that,
Yeah.
it was complicated. I can't remember why, but I remember feeling that, man, what did we just do?
He was presenting the, and it was very confusing, I will state.
And they had some deadline or something. But I don't know
That's
if
why
they
he
did.
kept, I will state that the ZBA has voted for all cases to have at least one representative here. Because it's so difficult, and I was asked, is it as difficult with the planning board? I says it's more difficult if they only present over that. You can always discuss that and vote to have at least one agent.
There was something else going on with that, but I can't remember what it is.
You know, it was the preliminary, there was no place for us to sign.
So we got the same problem here. So the top 2 pages are good. These 2 are not, no title block, and then this one's good.
Now, why do we need, in theory, I typically submit one Mylar. Is he just giving me different
He's got the whole-
views?
Well, it's the whole set.
Okay, wait a minute. What am I, oh, he Mylar'd the
The whole set.
specs.
And this is the one.
That's the only one for the, we don't,
This is the cover sheet.
yeah, you don't submit, you go to submit, I mean, you're gonna build it, so no, this is, you just need to do the subdivision.
And this is the same sheet.
He gave them here.
Right.
Two of them.
He gave them 2 Mylars and there's no,
That's good, that's good.
so these are
And this
way
is a
over,
duplicate. So
right, way over.
you don't need that. That's, those
And
are
These
good.
2?
Yeah.
And the cover sheet, you don't really need to sign either, but
Well-
that's fine, sign it.
It's just, I would just sign it.
Yeah.
Have it, sign it, put it in there.
He spent a lot of money and put it on, so, yeah. Okay,
It's a way of doing things.
right, it's very fancy.
And much cleaner to reproduce.
Don't lose your minutes, Toby.
Well, every time I think I'm good with them, we end up asking a question. And I'm like,
That'll be all for me, Ken. If you want.
You good there?
I'm all set administrative-wise.
All right, so communication, so that's admin, communications to the board, anything? Anybody got it? Okay. Let's go to public comment. We have a couple of members of the public. Mr. Hubert.
I'm Dr. Hubert. I serve on the Conservation Commission here in Newport, and one of the questions that we have is the community survey that you're in the midst of.
Yep.
What is the deadline for the survey itself? Is there
June 30th.
June 30th?
It's on there, Drew. Will you let me get a copy of the survey? Let me get that for everyone to look at since he's approaching.
Or you making a trail?
I know how to jet. It's like this every time.
And my other question
Good thing
is,
it's so
will we
close.
be able to get a copy of the results of that survey when it's...
Yeah, we plan to publish that. So we went out with a survey to gather the data, as when you heard us earlier, talking about the master plan.
Right, that's...
So we're trying to gather data to study the master plan and update, is what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's what we're in the midst of too as well.
okay. So, from what perspective? For you guys?
As far as part of the natural resource inventory.
Okay.
We're looking to hire to have that done over the next year.
Okay.
And obviously looking at what people are looking, how that fits in with the community survey.
Yep.
You know, are we protecting the properties that
We need to protect and.
exactly for the master plan? And,
Okay.
you know, we're seeing some, I think, just a deviation over the last 10 years or so from what the plan specified, so.
And when do you anticipate getting yours back? Or doing
I
yours?
think it'll be done sometime early next year.
Okay.
We're not sure, we don't have all the details yet, but Moosewood Ecological is looking to be our resource for doing that natural resource inventory.
So, yeah, so on the front of our survey, it's right here, June 30th,
Oh,
which
okay.
says today. So we want to get this in, because it is the planning board's mission, if you will. And start working on the master plan, because it needs to be updated. And Christina, we had talked, Mrs. Irwin had asked about the master plan and the building inventory study. Now, didn't,
Building inventory.
building inventory, not a building assessment?
Okay, so I apologize. Is that presently in the 2010 master plan?
That was the question I asked.
Okay. Oh my word. I am so sorry. I do not believe it is. But I could go get a master plan.
Well, if you could get the most recent.
Absolutely.
I have one.
Oh, you have one. Look, but the 2010 is the most recent.
Okay, and you had it later.
Wait, no, I apologize. 2012. I apologize. 2012 master plan.
And I did the most recent, but I don't think the 84 was redone in 12, and so it needs to be part of the master plan, not completed, but that in the master plan, this will be done, and you have to then fund it,
Okay.
because it's a contract.
I'll go get you a copy.
Perfect.
But I do not believe that's in it. I will say the CC's timeline kind of fits in with yours because I think it might take us easily the rest of the year.
Oh,
And
it's-
maybe, right, it could go out early next year, whether you did it 23 because you did most of the work, or 24. We're still
Well, it'll
right.
probably be 24.
Or, I don't, let
But I
me,
thought, didn't the town's insurance people do, or didn't the town do a building assessment survey recently?
But I think
I'm
it's
talking a couple of years.
the town's buildings,
Right.
probably. This
Right.
is the town.
The town.
All,
town-
everybody
I know that.
building.
Right, but I'm talking
Town-owned
the town-owned properties that did an assessment.
I can ask, I don't believe I've seen that.
Right.
Who did that last time?
Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Council. You previous board contracted with them in 84 to do it. So this would be something that you would include in the master plan and put it out to bid to have a similar type organization
Do-
updated.
Okay.
Didn't they do the 2012 one too?
The master plan,
Yeah.
I believe they did.
Yeah,
I think
and they
they
also
did.
did the earlier version of this.
Right.
We just didn't,
Yeah.
we talked about, we just didn't use them to do this because we just basically copied what was done streamlined it to get more information
Exactly.
without going out to somebody. But there are pieces, yes, we have to go out and get that expertise,
Right.
for sure.
And thank you.
This could be your copy.
Thank you. The question was the cost of the Upper Valley now. Is it more cost effective to look for somebody else? I would suspect you would bid it anyway. They may come in as the lowest bid, but it's not, it's probably a 2-year contract maybe. I would think to do this analysis, but at least as a foundation. But it has to be included in the master plan as part of the work of the master plan.
Can I see it?
Sure. Absolutely.
I can
And it will then drive, if you will, the extension of the historic district to go right down the Main Street and maybe go up Main Street, because it's a very narrow, it's just the oval, the
Yeah.
common. And you can look and see that the historic district should be farther because of the buildings, and up a little like, I don't think,
down to Dunkin' Donuts.
Get the end of
Yeah.
the common. The
it's
other
just
end,
up,
that's
yeah,
South Main Street.
it's common to common, really, yeah. So, but this has all the buildings in it, or as many as were done, and it also identifies the
I'll
ones
make copies
that are
for everyone.
National Register of Historic Places, and many of those in there qualified at that time to go on the register, and they may have chosen not to. I don't know the process of doing that, whether it was an economic issue, but it's something that, as the Historic Commission will be looking into, to see what else we want to put on the Historic Register, and the net effect of that.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because, if it goes on, sometimes it's binding as well.
Exactly, and people get concerned when you identify a district, and it's not that onerous, what you can do and what you can't do, because it's really facade. Inside is really not controlled
Right.
as much as the facades, and right now we're very lucky, when people are redoing whatever they're redoing, the integrity of the building is good, and the integrity of the outside has been good, and so far there's no indication that that's going to change, but in the master plan you want to make sure of that. Like I think in this, I haven't seen this one, but in the earlier one was that whole thing of the second Main Street.
I didn't read it. What's new?
Yeah, you were probably in nappies then. It was to redo Depot Street and that whole back and make a second Main Street.
Okay.
Go through the parking lots and the depot and all of that. And now the chamber has the depot, and I'm pretty sure they'll keep the integrity of that building.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's nice.
Betty, could I keep that and make copies?
you
and
have one.
in my office?
Yes.
Oh my God, help me.
Yeah.
Okay, I will find it then. I have to bring you paperwork tomorrow anyways, but then here, you take this back.
So,
Yeah.
to get back to the conversation we haven't got through, all these parts, pieces, we need to compile and have a work session to put that all together. And this was our first start to get it kick-started, gather some data, do some study. The other, I don't know if you must have saw the other booklet that was like 12 pages and
In the back of,
in the back of that, yeah. And nobody really,
15
I don't
pages.
think the survey got 10% response type thing
7.
back then.
Back in
That's an
20.
interesting-
How much response have you gotten?
We've gotten, we're slightly over 10%. I will say I have
Still, it's up, but
extras.
it's-
If people have
we
not
still
filled
got
them
a couple
out.
weeks ago.
What is that?
The survey, like I
I
was
know,
thinking that,
what is over 10%?
I think I would have to recount. I think we get more in every day. I don't have time to then count and divide.
I'll send you mine as soon as I do it.
Absolutely. And then, Jeff, I don't know if you or your wife has done that. I'd love for you to respond if you have it.
Did it go to every tax?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but some people, a few
You need
people,
one?
No, I've done mine.
would you like to? Do you want another one so both of you could argue about it? No, you're all set. Okay. The more, I want as many people as want to respond,
Well,
obviously.
how did they go out? Just in regular mail?
They went out
Regular mail.
to you directly.
They came last week, I think they came. I don't
Oh,
know.
no.
Was it?
A couple
well,
weeks
maybe I
ago.
did say
In a
that.
few weeks.
You were in Mexico
I
by
have
that.
not opened a piece of mail.
You were in
like
Mexico.
5 years. So.
Oh,
I think it was more like over a
Others do
month
that.
ago?
Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Bennett.
Quite a while ago.
I'm gonna take both.
So yeah, it was in, anything else that you want to talk about?
And
Well, I think down the road, if, some of us come and we do like I said, a joint work session.
Yeah, I mean, multiple groups, we gotta get through this thing, and, but it is, like I said, it is our mission, and we're trying to streamline it, and if we need to go out the outside, that's what we gotta do, and,
Because we're looking at the land use
Yeah.
suggestions, the water aquifers, protections.
right.
The
There
wetlands.
should be a protection zone. The wetlands is obviously one of our core responsibilities
Mhm.
as a conservation commission, so.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, I think expanding the historic district is an excellent idea because it only takes one rogue person to suddenly, what happened to the facade of that building, and then the whole character of Main Street takes on
Exactly.
something you may not be used to see.
So we can delve into it at greater depth when you get to the point that you're ready to start putting the pieces together, but
Yeah.
after I have a 7:30.
Thank you for your patience.
Thanks, take care.
Okay, anything else from public?
We're good.
Okay.
I am continuing to add, and I think I'm going to start adding, just whether you covered or not, along with my other boards, which I oversee, that just a master plan. Whether the meeting goes too long and they have no time to discuss it, we should just be having it on everyone's, even if we get little snippets done.
Yeah, so let's put it in the minutes, because the next meeting we should have would be beyond our date, so we should start to talk about that.
And it was discussed last time that I would start the compiling of the data, so then once I get it into a spreadsheet, then that's where you can make pie chart, when you can ask for anything.
So let's put it on for the next meeting as an agenda item.
Yeah,
And if it's
absolutely.
simply, they're in and Christina's continuing to compile, then we can leave it at that, or we can talk about the next step.
Or continue to read through the plan itself, even though we don't have the survey results. I will say that Jeff, this lot line adjustment came in like at the last day, and not that it matters, but I thought we would go, we'll have nothing on the agenda. This will be perfect just to meet, which is all good. And
Well, we
did
can
it.
talk about some of these other pieces. as the meeting
Absolutely.
goes on. Yeah. Okay, now we'll go to the board. I had a couple things that I've been asked about in public, and I wasn't sure, and I was trying to do some reading and check up on. Number one is, where do we land with tiny houses?
Tiny houses, and I'll start, I think I gave you all copies of the zoning manuals too. Tiny houses or homes, forget what you call them, homes under 600 square feet are not allowed in the town of Newport in any zone
Okay.
except via a variance.
So-
We presently have 6 tiny homes that have all received, it's a case by case, that have all received variances. It is something to consider because from 30 years ago, lifestyles have changed and everyone isn't living in the Cape with the 2 acres and blah, blah, blah. But that would be obviously chats, but that's where it is
So we
presently
have 6 that were voted and approved by the zoning
by
board.
the zoning board on a case by case basis.
Can we get a list of those?
Absolutely.
Because there's some, I mean, I drive by a couple of them like, that's not allowed. And
Absolutely
apparently it
not.
is.
That seems,
And I'd like to know that so that if I'm asked a question, I can answer
Absolutely.
informed.
certainly
Anything.
there's a fine line between a tiny home and a camper.
Well, not anymore.
No,
Because-
they're 2 different things.
Well, there may be two
Yeah.
different things, I just mean that's it's semantics.
They can look at
Yes.
it. I will say, we require full permitting for tiny homes like regular homes. We require a well and a septic if there's no town water or town sewer. Tiny, and they're all
Concrete,
And what
concrete.
foundation?
concrete and tie downs. They are as scrutinized as a manufactured home or a modular or a recipient.
So, once they get their variance, there's no grace period. They have to meet the permit conditions as you just stated.
They could come in
What do you mean by
whenever
grace
in a
period?
2-year period. They have 2 years. The variance stays in place for
I know,
2.
but in order to, so they get the variance, okay, you can go ahead and do a small house, right?
Then they have, yes.
When they get their building permit to do it, they have to have plans and everything ready with septic, water, all that.
Or I am not allowed to give any permits for a new home without a proof septic to construct, and I need the number from the state. I need the plans.
Yeah.
I need how the site's gonna look. I am not required to make sure there's a well, but you need the well for the septic, and you wouldn't be allowed to move in if you had no well, because the septic wouldn't work. But yes,
So like the one at the,
I know we're all thinking the same way.
they
so the
don't,
one at the top of the hill,
Dark Motors.
what top of the hill?
across from the recycle station,
Yeah.
Yes,
by
she's,
Blood Road.
yes, she has a well and a septic.
Where?
I don't know if they've been installed yet. We have not.
I see a brush pile.
No problem.
We have not inspected.
Okay.
We have not inspected that. I believe there was not the cement foundation or the tie downs. And no, she's not
They're
supposed to be living in
She
it.
has, hold on. I might even have the ECA number.
Okay. Oh, you did some snooping.
Do you,
No, I just,
No, I did the work.
I've been asked.
Yeah,
and
I
just,
have.
oh, you did the work. Okay.
I did the driveway.
Right. But,
And
so,
I'm scheduled
have.
to do the septic.
I have
but
the
to
contract.
Christina's point, they've already moved in
Are you sure?
and nothing is signed up.
Hey, don't even get me started on this.
Yeah.
Don't even get me
Well,
started.
I've dealt with
That's
the
the reason I
I've
asked.
dealt with the RVs. They're in the legal system. I could check on it tomorrow, but she absolutely has, and she comes in pretty often and has gotten it. I even think there was an issue with her well where she placed it because she has such a tiny property and she couldn't steal water from salt. You know what I mean? She got approval to place a well in a certain section. I could get all that paperwork if
You
you'd like to
just
see
sign a
it.
waiver. That's all it is.
You want the signed waiver?
You sign a waiver because your well is too close to the neighbor's
Oh,
property.
yes, yes.
So you name it after the neighbor
I see,
if
yes.
you have a
but-
problem. That's
yes.
what you have.
So she has all the approvals to, again, she does not have her certificate of occupancy. Is it difficult to go after a certificate of occupancies on private property? Yes.
Christina, hold on. You should tell them what I was told
What?
about the town's policy to deal with these sort of things.
Which is what?
That you have a certain grace period of somebody's building, that you guys have always kind of let somebody
Live on the property.
on the property.
But
See,
not,
I questioned this
not
myself.
in the home. And, well, if they're building it, because typically, you can't, the thing is, it's more of a state rule. Again, it's hard on private property, but you are not allowed to live in a home that you do not have town sewer or a working septic, which you need water. Getting someone off the property if they say she never calls us for inspections, she never calls for a CO, and she never installs a septic, then I have to start a legal process. It usually takes about 2 years.
How long
I
do
have
you
not
need to
got-
do that, though?
I have not even got, because she's usually really diligent. Will I say construction in Newport has skyrocketed? We are so overwhelmed, and my building inspector virtually no longer works. She has done her due diligence, and I do not check up necessarily, but
So,
I could,
is it,
if you guys
does it start with, it would be more building department than planning,
This is
but is it a warning letter to start with?
So very rarely does this happen, because who wants to do a new home without a septic?
I know, but
Right, so when it does, while it's rare, I usually go to the state. The state's oversight is if you're living in a home without a working septic, it isn't even my fight. Because I've got all
Here's
the
the thing.
approvals.
How do you even prove that somebody's there within a month or two? There's other ones in this town that people are living in that have been going on a
Well-
heck of a lot longer.
Right. Well, I mean, the problem with this one is it's right where you see it. Every
This
time you
the
go by.
problem with this
And
one,
you can't
Ken,
hide from it.
Ken, the problem with this one I'm talking about is you can't hide from this one either.
Right.
You're looking at it, and you don't even know it.
Yeah. No, I agree. They're there.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, I mean, that's why, first was, my simple question was the tiny house rule. Where are we at? And you explained that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then it gets into the permitting side, okay, for building permit thing. That's the issue we're talking about. I was merely coming at it from the planning board side to start with, okay? But that one just jumps right out at you when you go by. And there are others that they dress them up. I mean, I've seen, there's one down Kellyville right by the Cap place that
Yeah.
has a camper right on the front lawn,
What do you
in
mean
front of the brick house.
You mean with all the...
Oh, hold on.
You know,
Let Christine explain that.
That has been, so I have sent a letter giving them 30 days, no response. It went to legal.
Okay.
They sent a letter. It is now going to the court system. Again, let's just pretend, which I think they're still living in there. I thought, let's just pretend the day we go to court, they come in and they say we moved out. I swear to God, that's the end of it, and they can move back in. And we have to start all over again. It's happened before, and we will start all over again. But I'm not joking. All they have to do is say we've unplugged it, and they're gone. And then a week later, this happened at one other property that finally has gone away. They would clean it up. About 6 months later, it was bad, if not worse. And we had to, even Hunter said, this is ridiculous. And I had to start again. Right now, I probably have 30 junkyard cases, including 2 RV issues in different stages. It's ridiculously time-consuming, and we do go to court for a lot
Like I
of
said, I was
And there
down.
really is
It's very,
an RV
Yeah.
rule in the town of Newport. Right?
30 days, but it cannot be hooked up by anything, no power. No, okay, so you can hook it up to power, but then you can't have anyone living in it. You cannot, and someone can
use
live in
the
it
kitchen,
for
as far as
30
I
days
know.
to keep it warm or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can't have someone live in it and hook it up. And if someone's visiting, they can visit up to 30 days. They can use it for sleeping, but they are not supposed to be working and living in town. They're to be visiting.
And that's a
So,
slippery slope.
and that is allowed. So it's that very hard. Someone in theory could move out for a week and come back in.
Okay. So I guess.
This one is
circling
gorgeous.
back to my question.
Yes.
The tiny house rule is what it is. They got a
Not,
variance.
yes.
I'd like to see a list of those variances.
I will bring a list of the variances, and I will bring Sandra Gray's entire case because, again, she
Well-
did her due diligence with all the
From
paperwork.
a planning board, from my position here on the planning board,
You-
if I had the variance to look at,
Yeah.
I'm done as a planning board member.
But you want to make sure I do my job right too.
But that's a building inspection thing. That's a different purview.
Right.
Okay?
Well, it's under mine.
Right. I
It's
mean, from
under-
a townsperson point of view, yeah. I mean, if we let this get out of hand, I mean, it gets out of hand fast.
Fast,
Okay.
yeah.
And it's not unlike the next issue I'm going to bring up for the grace period and the same thing. Okay. So I guess I was done with that issue. Are we all done with tiny
no.
house?
I
Let's get going.
have some questions.
Let
because
Jeff speak and then I'll speak.
I just think there's some, I don't know what the rulings are on them, but to me, it's like, there was an era when they were mobile homes. They're on wheels, they got rolled in, everyone said no more, right? And there's RVs. I own a fifth wheel, big fifth wheel, from my land. I've been taxed on it when I didn't live there. Parked it behind the gym because
You're allowed.
we go and we leave, but I
You're
got
allowed.
in trouble for it. But I was allowed to ride my property. I hook it up, get ready, go camping for a month. I come and go with it. So I'm just saying, but they really aren't any different. None of them are different. Nor is a small house. They're just on a frame. You got wheels. So I don't know what makes it different, but I know that all of a sudden you can see, or suspect you start seeing a lot of this little subdivisions. You're going to see, I want an acre, I want an acre, I want an acre, and you take little things. The next thing you know, you got tiny houses going up everywhere, which are really just mobile homes that are made out of wood with some clapboards on the side and an asphalt roof. And really, what's the difference? And is this a federal differentiation that suddenly this is coming through, or is it a town or a state, or what makes my RV different than
What's
that?
the basis for granting the variance?
That's
Okay, so I think Jeff brought up a few things, and then yours are slightly different. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. There's 5 criteria that you have to get approval on all of them. Obviously, I can bring in every case, and you could read, because they're different for all of them. I will say, with that property, I might say the wrong zone. I think it's rural.
not Kellyville?
Where's Kelly?
No, it's not.
It was such a small problem. She filled out all 5. The hardship was that it would be very difficult to have any kind of real business on the property because it's so tiny for like parking or lighting or safe, blah, 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 the things required for businesses. And that any normal size house, based on the size, was also be incredibly difficult. This was a subdivision prior to 1955, which grandfathers it. So there is allowed to have a house on that property, and there is considerable concern that who would ever come along and build a 3-bedroom family home that you couldn't fit a septic. And so in essence, it makes it obsolete to the owner. And that was the hardship. But I don't want to speak for that. I would rather have you read the case.
Well, I want to say, I mean, 'cause
Virtually.
I understand the criteria.
But that's on that one.
And I've said it before, variances, at least in
Okay.
every other town, are supposed to be, they should be next to, like, impossible to get. Where, it's not finance, it's not this. I mean, variances are usually very troubling to get.
Usually
Because you're
it's
giving
that
up on your values to do it.
It's the hardship. Your land, the land itself, has to have a hardship not based on monetary, because it everyone's just say monetary, that makes it unique to give it the exception. That's the 5th one. I will say, Jeff, that I believe, which is meaningless, but it goes back to the conservation, that our subdivision laws, Newport subdivision laws, are not strict enough. You can subdivide any property, the rural zone included, down to less than an acre legally. That's in the rural zone that was supposed to be our farming. I know towns, specifically the town I live in, I wouldn't say you want to adopt our zoning, but in the strictest zoning of the town I happen to live in, the R1, single family residencies only, they don't allow anything less than 2 acres. Not saying you should do that, but I do think to protect some of the natural resources, just because you mentioned an acre, forget an acre. You're allowed to go way smaller than that.
Some of the ones on first, second, third, when we looked at things, we had a case up there,
They
that was
were-
1/4 acre.
They know
My house on South Main Street, I only own a 1/4 acre.
Yeah.
It's a 2-bedroom house, but
the one out on First was 12 feet by 100. They were the piano keys.
Yeah.
But that was pre-zoning.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But I do think you guys should think about protecting, not letting everything just get chewed apart. Because this town, everyone wants in. I get called every day. And have you noticed these things have skyrocketed? People are selling it for tons of money, and they're real. And I just think that's my opinion.
Those lots are just,
They're flying, and they're going for a ton of money. Newport is becoming impossible to purchase into. I would think that you might want to protect it a little. That's my opinion.
Mr. Shishman?
So what about the other question about what differentiates the mobile home from a tiny house from an RV?
Oh, the only thing that does is if someone wanted to live in a mobile home, I believe they absolutely could. I'd have to.
an RV.
I apologize. Not a manufactured home.
Because we have a section on manufacturing.
Yes.
RV,
But
a
how
mobile
is a
home,
tiny house not a manufactured
a
home?
mobile home is built under HUD specifications by the federal government. An RV is something totally different.
Yeah, it's
These
on a
over here, where
frame.
you're
It's on
removing
a
the
strong
frames coming
frame.
under a BOCA code. That's totally different.
Well,
It's all
that's just
built under
a-
different codes.
Those are like a transportation device. The
But
metal
that's how
frame.
like a modular house is.
Yeah.
They're built exactly the same. It's a BOCA code.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Although I will
But
say,
RVs, the funny thing about RVs and the whole history of it is, and I asked my dad about it, that's where this all stems from, is talking to my dad. And he said back when we were in high school, Ken,
Yeah.
there was a bunch of families living at Crow's Nest Campground.
Full
And
time.
all full time.
Yeah.
And all their kids were going to school.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
You probably remember
And not
them.
paying taxes.
And not paying any taxes. And that's when this whole thing started. But it's also good because do we really want to Nana living in a camper in everybody's backyard? Or the kids?
Well, the other side, I mean, it's violation of all the rules. I mean, accessory
The
dwelling.
600 square feet.
600 square
600
feet,
square
permanent structure. I mean, it brings in
I-
a whole host of different issues.
I will say, I believe Jeff, though, let's state, if Jeff took his recreational vehicle, took the wheels off it, put it on a slab, did the hurricane tie downs, and then you met all the other insulation and electrical and snow load standards, that would become I don't know what you'd call it, because people are making homes out of those metal boxes that are the shipping
Well,
containers.
that's where I'm going with that.
So
I
don't
think
think
so.
he can't convert it. It's just that you would also have to have a well and a septic, and it would have to be permanently hooked up.
So the tiny houses have to come off the wheels?
Yes, I would, I'll have to go, and have to be hurricane tied down. And that's why
But where is that in any written rule?
that's the building
That one's
inspecting
on- that one's on the
2018 International Business Code. Safeties. So you could convert your RV, I believe. You maybe have to beef it up.
I'm just, not that I would want to.
Right,
do that.
but I
I'm
think
just-
it's like
I'm just
you-
wondering where it's going to go. All of a sudden, talking about, yeah, you don't want to have mother-in-law sitting behind the house. If you buy the tiny house, rolls it in there and says, well, this one's a tiny house, and here I am.
It's an accessory dwelling. That's what it boils down
Right,
uh,
to.
so if if our rules say you can't have an accessory dwelling on that piece of property, then you can't have it.
Right.
This case is a individual piece of property where it is going to be the
This
primary.
is
So I get it. This
This
is a
is
little
the
different.
dwelling.
This is different. But what you're going to get to is, like I said, the RV or the tiny house become that accessory dwelling, which may or not be provable, but they're going to pop up all over the place. I mean, and finances say everybody's going to go, and that's the trend right now, is to go tiny house.
Tinier.
And they're going to shove them in all over the place.
Right. I would say what stops say, even saying, well, I got this 20 acres of land and I really don't know what to do with it. I'm going to plop a road in here and we're going to call this tiny house village.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And we're going
See,
to
Subdivide.
Absolutely.
why
think
not?
the real
4 acre lots each and in they go.
thing
You could do less than
about this
3
is
acres.
we need to find out, are we going to continue to keep giving these variances? Or do we need to make a change
That
to getting these variances?
I've said it
That
before.
is the real.
I said before, I quote unquote, I said, we give out variances like chiclets, okay? For everything. Whereas, I've been to municipalities where, you had to come in begging to get a variance. And you
I avoid zoning boards like the plague, except, this town is different. I have done a lot of building, and I have never once, I follow the code, because you're going to get hell if you don't.
Yeah.
It used to be a lot harder to get a variance in this town. I can tell you that I remember doing down on Paradise Road.
Yep.
I bought a section of railroad track there, and I did a small subdivision there, 3 lots with a building. And what I had to go through,
I know that property, I think.
what I had to go through to get the road had to come in just the right way, and it was really, really hard. You had to make this long sliver and all this stuff. It was hard. So I don't know how hard it is now, but it was. I couldn't get the variance. The thing is, I had to really get creative with my plan. I said, long candy sliver to get some road frontage.
To get a variance, you're supposed to exhaust every possible means of everything else before you can even be considered for that. But they gave it to him, so if we could get the list.
Absolutely.
They've given a lot of them.
I know.
Well, only six tiny homes, but a lot of variances. I will say, your ADU ordinance is pretty tight. First of all, we are not allowed by state law to not allow ADUs. So with that said, ADUs are allowed in every zone via a special exception. The rules are pretty strict, and the two main rules are it has to be encompassed within the structure of the home, or it has to be attached directly, which most people are assuming you convert a garage to the deck. So you can't have just the home and another little ADU sitting.
Right.
So your tiny ADUs are pretty tight, which a lot of people get upset about. They want the 2 homes everywhere. So again, just so you know, that I consider it pretty good, the ADU.
Well, when we did it, the spirit of it was that you would go to the zoning board and say, look, Grandma is in bad shape. She has no money. I'd like to move her into my backyard for a year or so. So they'd give you a special exception for a year, and then it had to disappear. That was when we discussed it.
No, these
You
are
remember this discussion.
And I was I'm kind of anti-tiny home for a bunch of different reasons, but we had that conversation with Bert. I remember Bert talking about it, because you could put the ADU on the way back 40,
Yeah.
and then
No, that
forget
is
about
not-
it.
you
Somebody
can't
moves
do
out,
that.
and then you got so
You
that
can't
was
do
the
anything,
conversation.
it has to
we
be
had.
attached.
Yeah.
But I
remember that, yeah.
I will state, right, you wanted to make sure it had to be attached.
Right.
I will state, there used to be rules that you couldn't rent an ADU. It was for truly, that, there's no way to regulate it, and it's not legal. They can rent them, they can let people live in them for free, they can let 18 families live in it if they want, or 0.
Right.
So there's no oversight. Matter of fact, I believe at the state level it's being pushed. They want more homes on more properties. They want to this state is doing the same thing. They want to get rid of rural areas and they want them to be packed with humans.
I think you'll find that one's pretty airtight.
No, I mean, the fact that it was good to hear this variance.
Yeah.
But like I said, we had the list. I mean, people ask me, and I'd like to have,
Right. But there is another one that's very obvious that's not airtight at all.
okay, so enough on that subject.
Okay.
The next one I had was storage boxes.
Yes.
Blue box, whatever they're called.
Okay,
Whoever,
okay.
that's a brand.
Yes. So a storage box that someone's renting to fill and Blue Box picks it up. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Or just
So-
storage boxes.
It's
Or
very,
you can buy them.
They stack them.
You can stack them. They're being converted to live-ins.
yes.
You can do whatever.
Yes.
So I guess the initial question is, so we have storage facilities and they're permanent and approved, not a big deal. But now they're doing this rental thing, and I get if you're renting one to put your tools in to renovate a place, and so they're there for a period of time and then they leave. But they fall under shed if you bring it in a semi-permanent way,
The
right?
trend in this is very interesting. If anyone wanted to buy up every $200 old 18-wheeler thingy 10 years ago, you'd be very wealthy right now because they're going to 5 to 20,000. So, with that said, there's nothing that prevents people from putting a structure on. It can be made of anything. We have no rules against this, as long as it's safe and meets code. So they come in, they have to permit for them, they get inspected, and they are, unless someone converts it to a home. But the only way to convert it to a home is to be over 600 square feet. If it's not, which I have never seen. They're used as storage. You're allowed to have, and we have no limit on sheds either in this town, which is cray cray.
Number.
Cray. So and they could just put them right. They could
No,
put
we
them
did have a shed.
Not
One
the-
shed, 200 square feet.
to violate the setbacks of the 5x5, and any other sheds had to meet
And you can have a shed.
that violates the setback.
Only one shed. You can only have one shed that is
Oh,
too
one.
close to the line.
Yes, and the
property
other
line.
sheds
There's
have
no rule on
to.
too many sheds.
You could have as many sheds as you want, which most towns do not allow. Well, some towns only allow one shed on any property. Hampton, which I know that's just because yeah.
No, I mean, I was trying to
So
do some pre-reading.
they could put 30 of them, which would look, by my opinion, horrific. But there's nothing I can do, so that should be a main topic, because people, they're cheap, they're watertight, they're an excellent thing for storage units. They're not actually that cheap,
But they look like hell.
but there's no limit in this town. And a lot of people are putting them up all over the rural area.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my son went to one in Pennsylvania where they had outfitted the inside of it into glamping.
Absolutely.
And it was pretty nice on the inside.
They are.
But there was a storage container. I mean, but
And
it's no longer a drop box for construction. It's
no, they convert. So they are.
semi-permanent.
There's people that they'll buy them, and use them like a working shed, a shed or a workshop.
And then they never leave.
Storage.
You can cut holes in them if you
Oh,
want.
you can do whatever.
Yeah.
I was just trying to research
I
what
do.
rules there may or may
I
not
think
be.
that should be looked at. Well, I think the easiest way to start with it is to base in certain zones to only allow so many sheds. There is no limit on accessory dwellings in any zone. So in theory, just pretend I bought a piece of property. It was private, not commercial, and they were my sheds. I could put, it seems silly, but I could put 100 of those things on there. It would look like a trucking depot or a storage facility.
Or a shed sales lot.
And if I wanted to let people use it and rent them,
Hey,
who would not? Right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying no one's done that, but you have nothing preventing it.
You could store
I mean, it would
campers
be-
as well.
it would be a pretty disgusting look to go down Keene Street or something like that and have one
And
in every
again,
dooryard.
no one's done that. But
There's
we'll
one
see.
right on
Or even
North Main Street.
Yeah.
There's one right on North Main Street that's got
I
one.
mean, we could go to character of the
3, 4.
neighborhood, but
No, you can't, because they're allowed.
Expanding the historic district will help with
Yeah.
possibly
I mean, maybe it's something we gotta look at.
Master
and
plan.
talk about,
I think you
but
should, you guys need
It
to,
is a trend that's out there. I mean,
Yep.
the thing is they don't
you,
go away. So once it's in, if the trend happens before you know it, and they're sitting, and 50 years from now, they're still sitting,
Yeah.
you know, it's...
they will,
well,
but
and then
these
so-
are long-term secure, the people, a lot of people are loving it, absolutely, because they're secure, they're watertight, and they're huge.
Yeah, they're
They're
8 by-
pulling
yeah, 8 by
cars
40,
in them.
8 by 50.
But they're not, these things aren't going anywhere.
Well, the other side of it too is we do have a sign ordinance, and it says blue box on the side, and it's there for too long. You're advertising, so get your sign out there.
That might be true, I guess. So,
Or
that's
Mason's
on,
rent or whomever's it is. You know?
so you obviously also are in charge of the entire zoning code. So with the master plan, we should probably have the two books in front of us and us constantly, because I do think the zoning code has not really been looked at since the 80s.
But that was something we'd have to put together and then get the town to vote on.
Well, you have to do it per, but I do think while we're doing the math, it might be at least to highlight your concerns and let's start getting them to the town vote.
Right.
Planning
Before-
charges of zoning?
Yeah, it's new zoning ordinances.
Yeah,
Ordinances?
yeah. But if we want to make substantive changes to them, we have to prepare it, and it goes as a warrant to get voted on.
But I
I'd
think,
be considered on some of these items.
Yeah.
A lot
And
of
it's worthy of. I think it's worthy of a conversation because it is a trend moving forward
it's your
that
purview.
could get out of hand.
Yeah, I
really
mean,
quick,
we
you
could
know.
make it a rule. Even if we were to, let's say, allow tiny homes, we could specify that they have to be stick-built. Yeah, or something. Yeah, or some.
It's-
You cannot, that
No.
is not legal.
No, you can't.
Because then sheds come not, they're all, everything's
Yeah.
pre-made. Have you seen the homes that go down the road?
Well, a shed's
Nothing's-
not a tiny home.
But homes aren't stick-built.
Well, they're made the same way.
You
Yeah, it's no
haven't seen
different.
a cabin
I don't
down
believe
Newport
that would be
on
like,
it?
all I'm saying is,
It's all the same.
I think we could tag team a lot of ideas like beefing up maybe your rural zone so you can't chop it up into these little pieces. Give it 2 acres maybe.
It's not just that. You can
Well, I think
you
the
can
road
subdivide, and then you just gotta wait 5 years, and you just re-subdivide, you wait 5 years, and you just like, you keep on going down the line.
Why do you have to wait 5 years? Is that a state rule?
The what?
Is that a state rule, waiting 5 years?
I just know that when I bought this property that just came up today, I remember when I bought it, it'd been subdivided into 3 lots, and they said, just wait, and you can just take one of those, you can subdivide it again.
There's no waiting period.
You
No,
can go.
you could do it the next week, the
Yeah.
next week, the next week, the next week, the next week. United Construction does that, but they're in an industrial zone. They're selling plots like Blue Box, which is because that's why you have planted a nice industrial zone. And every time they get a new buyer, they do a new one. They sell a piece like they should, and that's what great planning is. You have the industrial zone that's kind of pushed to the side. It's safe. It's the heavy trucking. But no, I don't believe I could look into that, Jeff. But you could turn around. I know how much property you have there. You could go again, and you could go right now and just do
For an optic, I'm just-
12 of them, just so you know.
Yeah,
As long as the road frontage.
I just wanted to bring them up.
Absolutely, there's truth to that.
I don't know the answer.
Or you buy a private line.
Wanted to talk about it.
I
I
think we
appreciate
should
the
start-
conversation. It's been good.
I think we should all, I think it would be beneficial, because I'm visual, for all of you, to have, when we're looking at the master plan, to have you guys also have a copy. And you guys can mark up that, but I'm visual, I'm like that. And I obviously need to start getting, but they so coincide based on what you decide here. You have to have the rules to back it up.
Well, and planning and zoning need to be harmonious,
And that's all planning part.
and that's part of. Well, it's not because, if they're giving away
Well, beef it up then.
variances, right?
Right, but the best thing one of you moved to zoning board.
Well, but the other, so here's something interesting. I mean, I've been on here for quite a while. You were on here previously for quite a while.
Yes, sir.
I've yet to have a conversation with any of the zoning board. As part of, planning board, zoning board, we
you
don't
like-
talk, we don't get together, we don't share a mission statement.
Would you like to? Because absolutely, I don't think they'd have a problem.
It'd be an interesting conversation.
I don't know if you know this, but you're allowed to have dual zoning board and planning board together. So if a case is going to the zoning board,
Yeah.
and then immediately go to the planning board, like which is kind of stalled, but there was a senior housing project up by the airport, that they would needed some variances, and then they were
No, they
gonna,
didn't.
Yeah, they did for the height.
No, they didn't.
They
Not-
did.
not
Hire a
3
civil
feet.
engineer to design the site.
Well,
You
I know
didn't
the
do
right
it.
way.
So there is no hardship.
it,
Case in point.
oh, possibly, right, but that's another thing, so they went, and then and it's kind of stalled, because I think they're restarting, so now, but you could have held that on this, you know this, you're allowed to hold those on the same night, if you guys so choose. You could have, you hear the ZBA case, and then when it goes to you, you could, that's just an example.
Kevin,
I don't-
hardship doesn't necessarily have to be for money.
It can't be
No,
for
no.
money, can't be,
You can't, money is not a hardship.
Yeah.
That is.
because everyone would
No,
just
but
say that.
In that particular case, they dropped 3 feet to miss the airport regulation for height, as the town regulation. Balance your site, right? Cut 3 feet out, rebalance your site,
Right,
you're done,
grade,
okay?
grade, I know it
There
was.
was a viable solution, a very easy one.
Grading. Well,
Didn't need a variance.
they're dropping way below the
Right, but I'm
30
saying that they
feet.
got a variance.
They were
Right, that's
given
what I'm saying,
one.
They
They
were
were
given a
given
And
variance.
I said,
Right.
they shouldn't have been given one.
Right.
my
Bird,
opinion.
you know
In
Bird
my
fought
opinion.
that. Bird
should
said,
have.
great,
Rightfully so.
Bird said, come on.
Yeah.
This came up at the last BOS meeting that a gentleman came in here and discussed that. Said, you know that building will stop certain aircraft from flying in here. There will be no more. And now I don't know that to be the case or not, but it's a
That's-
it means Rivers doesn't fly anymore. It means Bar Harbor doesn't fly anymore, and that's that.
They're allowed to fly in. There's potentially the pilots being concerned that there would be a safety issue. But the FAA doesn't state with a minute of housing structures, but they are across. They're not allowed to fly in. Because this structure, no matter what gets approved, has to get FAA approval. And I spoke to a gentleman
We
about
really
this.
shouldn't be discussing this.
Well, maybe not. But just so you know, the FAA, it's not like they can't, it could be a
It's already
worry.
gone through, so they were given the
It
variance.
hasn't even come to
No,
us.
It hasn't come to
but
you.
the variance was granted for
Right.
the height.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it yet from the planning board.
We shouldn't be discussing it.
That variance is gone, so it's not even a topic of conversation.
I think the point though to start with the discussion was that sometimes it may be beneficial in cases like this to have joint meetings
Right.
so that it doesn't end up awkward at some point. Because some of these projects are, it's something we haven't seen in Newport in a very long time. Big projects.
The construction is well, it's going nuts. It's hard to keep up with. I get a new home every single week. Had someone in today. I had someone in, and I get almost confused. I'm like, which process am I? Who? Because they're all into. It's crazy. It's excellent in a way for Newport because it's the influx
growth,
of
but-
money. In a way,
Yeah.
but tighten up the zoning rules. I would be at least look at them.
Okay.
Do we have any comments from the public?
I was going to go back to, is there any more conversation on that from Mark?
No, go ahead.
I just want to say to that point, Gunther Huber may have spoken to that, from the Conservation Commission, we're going to try and make a concerted effort to have one of us present at the planning board meeting.
Love to have you.
Because of the very fact that, there may be issues with wetlands, or there could be issues with, once the master plan is done.
I mean, by all means, it's my knowledge that I was on the Conservation Commission years ago,
Yeah.
and the Conservation Commission is a subpart of the planning board
Yeah, and
and should be involved in this process.
we really kind of
Well,
come to believe
yes.
that there just isn't enough dialogue, and
Yeah.
at least in a fashion, we thought at least getting somebody here to your meetings.
Well, sometimes the
Regularly
30-day bind is, when people submit to get the conservation to plan, approve
They're
it,
always
it's hard to
after.
get.
Yeah, I can't deny them a right because it's state law that if they make the deadline, but we've talked to the CC, they're come after you. And so a lot of times when you always say, where's the Christina?
It should be before.
And I know, and I'm like, I go, they're on it. And then I'll forward it. And that's why we try to get you to say, as long as there's no conditions from, and the CC is
No, we want
aware
that input,
that
sure.
you take their input seriously. And I usually like them to put some conditions down. Because I say, you guys pretty much go with what they request.
Or some comments, just some
Absolutely,
comments.
yes.
It was actually one of my frustrations when I was on the Conservation Commission, because
You,
other than taking care of some trees on the common, you didn't do anything because you weren't part of the process.
they're very much
And
more.
and a lot of the commissions or boards in town just do work in silos, and
Yeah.
and I think working with zoning and, you know, for you guys is, and us working with you is, and zoning, especially in this year.
You should be suggesting zoning
We're
for
doing the,
The master plan.
the NRI, yeah.
Yeah. But
There should be a lot of things that they could recommend via zoning that pertains to the natural resources, like I stated. My opinion doesn't matter. Do I see what's happening to Newport? If everyone likes it, don't change anything. Do I think some of your beautiful rural areas could stay a little plumper? But again, that would be like you, and the town that develop.
Yeah.
Well, I think in particular with, like you said, with the amount of variances that go out, if the zoning rules are really held to, there may not be as much of a need to maybe joint meet, but if we're just giving these out, you know, like candy, then it really starts to impact when it gets to the planning board. It's like, whoa, that variance was handed out, now where do we stand?
right, you got
And-
no knife for the knife fight sometimes.
Right, so I mean, like I said, those things that were really so rare, and so I don't really know the history of that being less so right now. But anyways, I think it's a good point to
At the
make.
very least, we would, you know, if we're talking to each other, we kind of get an idea of the thinking
Right,
going
the
on
thought
each of
The
the.
other part of it, though, is that if we make it too hard to do anything, we're not moving forward.
Right. You got
I
to
think that's where
Define
where
it.
some of this is at, is, you know, we're trying to make it possible to do things.
Right.
You know, because a lot of the jobs I'm working on in the town of Newport right now are jobs we're talking about, and they wouldn't happen if them variances,
Yeah,
or if we didn't.
We don't want to lock Newport into 1960.
Yeah.
We want to
No.
be able to come into
I
the
can tell
modern
you, you
world.
couldn't sell a lot of land in this town for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Because I tried. I thought I had some pretty nice lots, and I tried to drop the price and drop it, and I couldn't move anything for anything.
If you own land in this town, I would not sell it. I would say, everyone wants, since COVID, this is one of the highest coveted towns. There's nothing going on like this in Sunapee and New London. And very, very, I know a lot of the people, you know, the big subdivision near the golf course. I don't know if you remember it. Huge, multi-million-dollar broker from Wall Street. That huge 35 acres, and then he made those. He made actually nice lots on Breakneck. He made really nice lots. He's right. Big money came in from Manhattan, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Those are the heavy hitters.
No, I get that. I just, I guess I'm speaking from a position of conservatism too, because you can't,
Absolutely.
everybody,
Yeah.
historic commission's here, and you're trying to protect your nice little town. As much as you want growth,
Absolutely.
you're trying to protect what your town is, and if you're giving it away on, here's a variance, and the rules don't matter, then
Well,
you're not gonna have what you think you got.
I mean, if we're going to keep having kids, and our kids are going to be able to afford to buy homes,
Right. It's a fine line.
it is a fine line.
It's a
It's
fine
a very
line.
fine line, because I see, like, even
No, right.
the stuff that most of us would consider affordable housing, you know, mobile home park. The price of those now.
It's
Yeah,
good.
you would be
He's got
shocked
some
if I
nice-
told you what stuff is sold for in the last month.
He's got some. Yeah, I walked through a few of his, and
Unbelievable.
they're going for tons of money.
So
And
you're
they're,
telling us you're making all kinds
he's
of money.
making
I'm
back.
they own the mobile
He's
home
making
park.
back.
Yeah, and they're just the law, yeah.
But you've done a few of them, haven't you? You've done beautiful
Yeah, I've done a lot of them,
renovations.
but it's not affordable to a young person.
No.
If a young person graduated high school and went to work at Ruger's, they couldn't afford it.
Right.
So
Oh, even renting apartments and stuff like
Yeah.
that is so expensive.
that's why they're living in a camper in the backyard.
I will say I'm getting multiple upon multiple phone calls about the workforce housing. The most recent one was Ruger begging for how many of those units can we have. I obviously forward them to the Spring Street and then the one that's going. But besides that, nurses, teachers, LNAs,
Hitchcock is starving right now.
but and then the school is trying to grab a section. I mean, they're going to be a
Well,
good working
Hanover
full-time.
and Lebanon are negative units
I know, right?
right now.
And they,
So are we
right,
though, aren't we?
I think we still are.
Yeah.
At least we're doing
Yeah.
something.
it's sort of
But
right.
I know.
they've been negative for quite a while.
I think it was down in Milford. It was so bad that one of the bigger businesses there actually built their own apartments.
And rental,
House their staff.
not surprised.
I can tell you, if I have a rental that comes up, it's usually gone within an hour or two to whoever I want to rent to. I can always get qualities. They're quality places.
Right.
But, like, that's how bad it is. I'll get 40 or 50 phone calls within
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
That's how much desperation there is. And it's really people living with people who don't want to be living with each other. And
They're not right.
That's what it is.
But the other side of the workforce housing that I can appreciate and also have concern for at the same time is that I've seen the condition of some of the rental units in this town. And shame on some people. And then that may drive
Them
people
get
to look
fix
at what
up.
they're doing and what they consider to be livable conditions, because all of a sudden you're going to say there's something better over here,
They
and these
will
people are going to be
switch.
forced to say,
Beef it up.
maybe I ought to consider what I consider living space.
Or they might sell because I'll guess what, I know many developers that say I have offered 3 times for what there's even a mark for some of these multi-units, and most of the people, and these are not pretty multi-units, most of the people are sitting on it, but the minute they become empty, hopefully they'll either make them pretty or they'll sell them for a fortune and someone else will beef them up. Because people are begging to invest in here too, to buy those units. So Newport is definitely not, I do think the big worry is the lower income people, I believe, are going to be pushed out. Because I couldn't afford to buy here, and I get called all the time that you are pushing out all, right, they say me, I go, I agree. No one can afford the rent, and even the people that used to say rent to Section 8, they don't have to anymore. Then they could just, even though it might not be a nice place,
It's staggering, the rents.
it's crazy. And it frightens me.
The new construction too, for the most part, is
It's
very
not-
expensive.
it's
Yeah.
nice.
Yes.
Is the workforce housing ones are all everyone has air conditioning, elevators, all your heat's included, all your water, all your garbage collection for 40% below the county's average market rate. That
Good deal.
you are saving $1,000 a month potentially. That's good money.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Larry. Anything else?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, the big projects also seem to have, big federal money behind them too. And
Federal, state,
are there
right.
any
Absolutely.
programs, and and there are so many houses that are sort of being demolished because of neglect, is there any programs where we can get a hold of these houses, help people rehab old houses and turn them into 2-unit kind of deals,
I mean,
2 or 3 of them right on North and Main Street that come to mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Those
I've always wondered the same
properties,
thing. I hate seeing
Larry,
historic
I know
properties
exactly who
fall
owns
to
them.
the wayside.
That person has been approached by many people begging to buy them. You're talking empty, and I know who owns them. There are many young developers that have purchased there's like 3 young men on Laurel and Shady.
But are there grants available or anything? I mean,
They're doing it. They're not even looking for money. But there are some people that own a lot of property that, like Jeff just said, they're not going to sell, and they're leaving it in yucky condition. I know it, Rich. And we can't force a private property owner to sell.
It comes down to
And
the
there-
owner
and
and
there's-
their willingness to.
I understand. I never quite figure out how the business model of paying taxes on a place that's empty.
It's empty. If it wasn't empty, we'd be able to condemn it because it's not livable. But because it's empty, because I've gone and inspected these with the safety officer, there's nothing we could do because no one's living in it. If someone went to, we would have to post it. But these are empty, and again, I'm well aware that people have been offered. I think they know they're sitting on a gold mine, so they're sitting on it.
So your question about, where's the money available for the small investor?
Exactly,
It's really tough because these guys, I'm going to put in 40 units, we get all this money. And you have some guy who says, wow, okay, let's just take, for instance, the Gables or the old Moose Lodge that's down there, which I've looked at.
Would be
and
great
is-
for workforce housing.
Yes, that's something in
For
there. you
6
could-
5 units.
maybe something, but there's no parking. There's all kinds of issues there. But where's the money for those people? Where do they look? Where do they start to look? And do we, if those resources are available, do we try to post them so people can say, oh, there's a way to take these historic properties because they have such value to our town
Exactly.
in so many ways.
If you can get backing for a 20 or 30 unit, whatever, because the feds want to give you $4 billion, $5 billion, or whatever, where are the dollars that are available for small projects that probably add more value in some
Absolutely.
way?
Yeah, I agree.
I would think that would be our state representatives. I do know that this state, amongst many others, are pushing housing, and the state in total has one of the lowest empty units in the country. We're supposedly 25,000 dwellings. However you say a dwelling, a large house or a one-bedroom apartment. 25,000 below what we need. Even the 70 and the 42 unit, Newport doesn't even skim the surface of cutting into that need. So Sununu and the state are giving away tons of money. I wonder if they could lecture to us, are there funds that don't go to the super mega owners? I would assume there are.
Because I know they just passed in their budget there, I think Monday, to put like 25 million towards housing,
Yeah.
and then there's a couple other
There's
multi-million
There's
dollar
also
funds.
100 million last year that I know about for different initiatives.
Thanks,
But
Larry.
if there was something like, you want to take a house that has maybe some kind of historic value in town, and that you can do this work to it, but it has to maintain the historic integrity at the same time. Because the problem is when they get split up, they don't maintain that integrity, and all of a sudden there's a fire escape going down the front of the building. So there are issues that come into play with that. Because I in particular look at Newport, and I see a really pretty core. I see that basically starting sort of at Irving and ending at the end of the common. That's pretty nice all the way through there. But if you look at any of the arteries kind of coming in, you really look, instead of just driving in kind of, because we drive by it every day, if you really look, it's pretty sad.
And they're nice built. They're
And
nice
they're
homes.
nice-
They're
they're nice
nice
buildings.
homes. They just need paint and a new roof and some stuff.
And incentive. These people just, I know what it's like to try to do those projects. It's like, it will just bury financially. Especially in an old home where you just dig in and you're like, whoa, I just didn't realize that's a knob and tube behind that had
Right.
a piece of
Right.
mix coming out of the
That's
outlet.
the era that they were built, right? In the 50s,
Right.
40s, 50s.
But and I always wondered
Sometimes
at the first time around the planning board, that was always sort of on my heart. Like, where is that? Where is that incentive to get these arteries coming in with these beautiful houses? Because that's people really see that. At least I see it, and I always feel like I feel very settled and comfortable driving into, say, New London. So all of it's put together now. We're not New London. I don't say that
I don't think
we
we should
are,
be.
nor should we be.
You're prettier than this downtown is one of the most impressive. New
It's
London's
very
fine,
impressive.
but it doesn't have. New London doesn't have the historic structures.
No.
And you guys, just the clock tower is. I love
Yeah.
listening to it.
It's just, I think Newport is just large enough to be really special, and it's small enough not to be overwhelming. So it's like it could be there, and I think it could be there relatively easily. But these are individual.
They're individual owners.
I think you're going to get that rising. It's getting so expensive. I think they're either going to say, "I'm going to cash out at the $850,000 for my 3-bedroom,"
Yeah.
or they're going to say, "Crap, I can get $2,500 for these 3 per unit," and they'll say,
Yeah.
"So if they already are, I don't know if they might be. I don't.
I get it, but
I think it's going to bump up." That's my opinion.
okay.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. No, yes.
And I'd like to ask Jeff this, because he would probably know it more than, anyways, the 79E, how does that, would that help a smaller
Yes.
business owner or homeowner? Because when it first came out, that was how it was being advertised, that this will help the small man improve his house, make the repairs, you know.
There's
so on
the
and so
corridor
forth.
for the 79E. I have
I've
the
known
maps.
79 years.
There's the maps, and it's the corridor which you're talking about coming in from Ruger.
At the historic.
And then it goes down to the Main Street. So this is a state initiative, 79E, you can look it up, it's one of the RSAs. We adopted it. Whether you are putting money on the inside or exterior, I believe there's 5 years of substantial tax rebates that this town will give based on the money you put it. So say you upgrade, let's just even say you paint the outside and put on a new roof, and it costs 50. In theory, and I could give you all the numbers, you're probably going to get back 25 of that over 5 years in tax
If I
rebates.
remember right, what it does is it freezes your tax rate at that level, even though you're making improvements, so you're
Yeah.
not going to get taxed at, because you made improvements on your
I know, but I think I can bring it in, but she's on. That was meant to kind of make everything a little prettier. Ruger Mill they went for the 79E, and that's why they are not getting, they're not having to pay for improvements for 3 years. They're going to be taxed at, I think, 2.5 million opposed to the 75 million that thing will, if not more, that'll be worth after it has the 70 years. Maybe 100 million it'll be worth. We tax it, say 100 million for the next 3 years, it'll be taxed at the 2.5. Something, I might be a little off on the numbers. That's the same thing, they got a 79 approval.
The best you could do with it would be to post it, publish it.
It is
Right.
posted,
Cons-
but
yeah,
we could rebrand it, because it's still sitting, it was
Yeah,
a
so if you
big
just said,
initiative, I don't think anyone knows.
Put on the town website, said FYI, private, private owners, or
Tax
whatever, consider taking advantage of
Jeff?
79E to,
Jeff, that was
So you're going to take a,
The corridors?
yeah.
I can bring them out. It's the main street, kind of from a little bit from Yoshi's down to the Dunkin'
that
Donuts,
goes from
and then
300,000
it's the corridor up to the Ruger Mill.
But I'm glad you knew that.
on 300,
No,
a certain amount of years.
no. The maps are on the town
I think
website, and I
that's-
can absolutely get them. I'm gonna bring them in just so you could review. They're
it was just.
It's a T.
It's in here, but quickly reading it.
I'll bring that in with the tiny houses.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything else? Anybody? Name your pleasure.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
There's second.
I'll second it, since that's what we've been doing all night.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
See, I got your phone on that one.
No, that's right. Great conversation.